For 30 long winters, the Highlander lived alone in the silence of the mountains. His cabin stood like a scar on the endless white, weather-beaten, unshaken by blizzards, yet filled with an emptiness no fire could warm. His name was Elias McCullen, a man carved from stone and solitude. Once, he had been full of life, strong with dreams, but a cruel twist of fate had taken everything from him, his family, his kin, his love. Since that day, he withdrew from the world, choosing silence over conversation, and the whistling wind over human laughter. No one dared to climb so high to find him, and perhaps that was how he wanted it. The mountain was his prison and his salvation, and each season that passed was a reminder that he had built a life that no longer needed the warmth of others. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of unexpected encounters that can heal the deepest wounds of the heart, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Your support helps us bring more touching stories to life, stories that can inspire, heal, and remind us all of the strength of humanity. Elias had grown used to the rhythm of loneliness. He rose with the pale light of dawn, his breath white in the frozen air, and worked the land around his cabin with a steady, mechanical precision. He tended to his horses, cut wood for the fire, hunted and fished only as much as needed. He rarely spoke, except to himself or the occasional wolf that dared to linger too close to the edge of his ranch. For 3 decades, not a soul had crossed his path. The towns below whispered about the man in the mountains, the Highlander who had buried his past and vanished from the world of men. They said he was bitter, dangerous, perhaps even mad. But Elias was not mad, he was broken, carrying the weight of grief that had chained him to the earth. That winter, however, the silence of the mountain was broken. It happened on a night when the wind screamed like a living beast and the snow fell so thick that even the stars were swallowed. Elias was stoking the fire when he heard it, a sound foreign and frail, carried on the storm. It was not the cry of an animal but the pleading voice of desperation. Against every instinct to remain apart, he grabbed his rifle and lantern, pulling his coat around his shoulders, and stepped out into the storm. Through the white chaos, he saw them, figures stumbling toward the faint light of his cabin. 10 women, wrapped in torn blankets, their faces pale and hollow, their steps faltering in the deep snow. They were Apaches, their braids weighed down with frost, their eyes filled with exhaustion and fear. They collapsed near his fence, too weak to call his name. Elias felt his chest tighten as he rushed forward, pulling them one by one into the safety of his cabin. Their bodies were frozen, their lips cracked from thirst, their hands trembling from the bite of the storm. As the fire roared and warmth returned, their story spilled out like shards of glass. They had been cast out from their tribe, accused of betrayal and stripped of home. With nowhere to go, they had wandered the wilderness, hunted by hunger and cold. The mountain had been their last chance, and Elias, the man who had forsaken humanity, was the only hope they had left. For days, Elias fought with himself. His heart, so used to silence, struggled against the noise of compassion. He had promised never again to open his door to love or loss, for both had cost him too dearly. Yet each time he looked at the women huddled near his fire, fragile yet unbroken, something in him began to shift. He saw the scars on their faces, the tears that never fully dried, and he recognized his own pain reflected in them. They were survivors, just as he was. The ranch, once lifeless and still, now echoed with quiet voices, the rustle of skirts, the sound of footsteps. It was strange, unsettling, and yet, it was life. At first, Elias resisted. He gave them food, shelter, blankets, and little more. He kept his distance, speaking only when necessary. But as the weeks passed, he began to see small changes that he could not ignore. The women worked side by side, tending to the animals, repairing broken fences, planting seeds in the frozen soil. They filled the silence with their songs, soft, haunting tunes in their Apache tongue that rose like prayers into the cold night. One of them, a young woman named Nayeli, smiled often despite her hardship, and that smile stirred memories Elias had long buried. Another, older and wise, helped him mend his tools, her hands steady with knowledge passed down through generations. Slowly, piece by piece, they brought warmth into the cold fortress of his heart. Still, it was not without struggle. The mountain was unforgiving, and the storm did not cease. Food was scarce, and wolves circled closer with each passing night, drawn by the smell of survival. There were nights when Elias stood guard with his rifle, the women behind him, trembling but steadfast. He began to teach them how to fight, how to defend the ranch, how to survive the wrath of the wilderness. In turn, they taught him something far greater, how to endure with love, how to face tomorrow not with bitterness, but with hope. The cabin became more than shelter, it became a refuge where broken souls began to heal together. The seasons shifted slowly, and the ice began to thaw. Where once Elias had walked alone, now he walked beside 10 women who trusted him, who saw in him not a recluse but a guardian. He learned to listen, to share meals by the fire, to laugh again. One evening, as the sun bled red over the mountains, Elias realized that his heart, frozen for 30 winters, was alive once more. He had not asked for this, yet it had come to him, like a miracle carried by the storm. The Highlander who had once sworn to live and die alone now found himself at the center of a family he never expected. And so, the man who had endured 30 winters in silence discovered that even the deepest wounds can find healing when compassion breaks through the walls we build around ourselves. The 10 exiled women, once outcasts, found home not in the place they were born, but in the place where they were accepted, seen, and cherished. Together, they forged a life stronger than the storms, a bond that no exile could ever destroy. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Every interaction helps us bring you more powerful, life-changing stories that remind us of what it means to be human. Special request. In the comments, tell us, do you believe a broken heart can truly heal when given love and second chances?